Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Prodigal Son. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break this down. Well, first and foremost, we had the whole situation. Well, let's focus on the main overarching case in this episode. Essentially, it deals with like this ballet company where this dude Javier at this party ends up getting murdered, in particular poisoned. And what's interesting is that party was one that Jessica went to and Malcolm was supposed to go to, but he was with, Eve, which we'll kind of get to that side of things eventually. But I really like the whole, obviously she meets Nicholas, which the actor is, what's his name? Is it Dermot Mulroney? I've seen him pop up in some things. Like the thing I know best from him was like that he was in this short-lived, wasn't it an NBC show called Crisis? That's kind of what I kind of know, but there's other stuff too. I just can't remember what it was right now on the top of my head. But regardless, the fact is that the Javier ends up dying and obviously bringing everyone in, and it's like, oh, do you want to go check on your mom? He's like, and Malcolm's like, no, because I was actually supposed to be here with her, so if I go see her now, there's going to be another body and whatnot. But I love the whole situation of like Jessica comes towards him, she's like, Malcolm Bright, and then like I love Adrisa being like, Malcolm, it's your mom. She's like, hi, Mrs. Bright. And like Jessica walks right past her, and he's like, sorry, Adrisa, me and my mom, can we just have a moment? And she's like, yeah, we'll hang together some other time. I was like, is this actually your first time actually meeting his mom? I was like, that's so interesting and that's so adorable. I even love it later on when it's like, yeah, they were saying that Javier is like got labeled as like the sexiest man in New York. And then she looks at him, she's like, but I disagreed. And she's looking at Malcolm, and you see like Danny kind of looking down a little bit, and you see Gil kind of turning towards Malcolm. It's like I said, Adrisa crushing on Malcolm is always one of my favorite interactions. It's just, she's so adorable, dude. I love it. But the fact of the matter is Javier was poisoned. Someone had messed with like, because he was taking something for like having jumpers in these, so it was like a medication for that, and that's how the poison was administered. And so the question then becomes like, well, is it other people at the ballet? And we kind of get the ins and outs of the ballet. Like, man, there's some viciousness to that. Like the ladies are joking around talking about the fact that basically sex isn't meant to mean anything. It's just kind of you hit it and quit it type of thing. Then one of the dancers, she has like basically pepper spray in her contacts. And I won't lie to you, that scene got me. My eyes started tearing because like I can't handle eye stuff, because I think I have really sensitive, especially because Malcolm was blowing air to like knock her contacts off, which is like two things. One, I hate contacts. That's why I will always be a glasses person, because I can't stand the thought of putting something in my eyes like that. It just I can't handle eye stuff like that. So it just, that whole scene made my eyes water like crazy. But luckily everything kind of worked out like that. But in the grand scheme of things, it's like, I love like Gil being like, all right, basically I've raided, drug places and found less incriminating evidence in here, because basically there's so much evidence insinuating that like they were sabotaging each other. Like one of the shoes, apparently there was like a whole bunch of glass at the front of it. It's like, Jesus. And like someone's like had tampered with someone's like oat milk or something like that, put X-Lax in it or something like that. It's like, man, they go hard in trying to sabotage each other. Like, it's kind of a cutthroat. It kind of, just because it's kind of a similar vein, it kind of reminds me of some Dare Me stuff, but obviously to a more extreme. But it's like, man, that's gnarly. And so, Malcolm being like, and I like what Malcolm does. He's basically walking through. He's like, basically, I examine people, but it's like, but you as you guys are well trained to basically push down all your pain to kind of keep it hidden. But because of what you got, this whole that whole situation of messing with her eyes, like that chemical is like, he's like, it's going to start, kicking in right about now. It's going to feel like there's a whole bunch of ants crawling on you. And the lady that was in the room with him, she was the one responsible. But it turns out the reason why she did this is because it's like someone told her to do it, but she won't say who. And they're like, why would you do that? It's like, because it'd be career suicide. And obviously it's like, oh, who's the one person that has the most power? Not the director of the program and stuff like that. The lioness, that being Fiona. Interestingly enough, Fox connection-wise, the actress who plays Fiona, I've looked her up before, but she was in the TV show The Americans, which was on FX. I I feel like there's something else I know her from, but that's what immediately clicks in my head. I was like, oh, that's her. But basically, she's the one that's kind of in control. And it's like, oh, like, is someone going to, like, press charges or something? And it's like, the lady who got her eyes messed up isn't going to press charges because that's just how things kind of roll. And she's like, I thought so. It's basically it was kind of meant to be like a retribution. So like I said, just showing you like how bloodthirsty things can be, and even the fact is that she's at the top pillar to all of this. But what I also love too that we get another, like, he's like, I got it. He's like, JT won, and he's like trying to guess again. And I love JT being like, oh no, but thanks for playing. I just love that. That's like this little subtle bit in episodes, him guessing JT's actual name. But nevertheless, it turns out that this is all connected to Javier's past. Because obviously I love them, like, because like from the very beginning they already set up the whole like Gil thing of like him coming to question Nicholas, but it's like, oh, Jessica's there, because obviously the show's already set up like there's potentially something between Jessica and Gil, but I think it's a situation of like neither one of them's really trying to bite the bullet on the situation, because I think for Gil, he feels like it'd probably be weird because it's like, my relationship to your son and everything, but also just kind of like maybe he feels like it'd be unprofessional, and maybe Jessica doesn't see things that, I don't know. Like, you could definitely tell Gil was bothered when he was like, oh, she's like, oh, this is Nicholas. And he's like, oh, hi, yeah. Like, he really wasn't too fond of the situation. But later on, when they show up and he's trying to get them out of there, because he's like, and she's like, hey, Nicholas, how would you like that martini? Dry or dirty? And he's just like, Malcolm. He's like, mother. And then, like, Nicholas is like, Malcolm, your son who works with the police. Who you didn't tell me was working this case. She's like, I thought I told you he was working this case. And he was like, no. And then Jessica kind of gives Malcolm that look, and I guess Malcolm kind of has that look like, oh, I see what's going on here, Mom. And it's this whole complicated thing of just like, obviously, Gil is just kind of like annoyed by this situation, but he tries to keep it professional. Because even when they're back at the precinct and he's looking at Nicholas's picture, he wants to believe he's a suspect, because he's just like, because you can tell it from the beginning, like, I think something about him just rubs Gil the wrong way. It's going to come off as jealousy, which that might be a good chunk of it, but with everything that kind of goes down later on, you'll be like, oh, maybe there was some validation to them. We'll get to it soon enough. But I thought that was such an interesting aspect to it. But basically, this deals with Javier's past. Like, he was a part of this company back in Cuba where, like, the dude, like, basically poisoned, like, 6 of the people, the same poison that was used to kill him. And so at first they were wondering, like, what was this all about? Because Javier wanted to leave. And even talking to Fiona, she basically told us about it at one point in time, like 2 weeks ago. He couldn't perform, so she's thinking maybe it was stage fright, the new venue and stuff like that, but it's like something else was at play here. And that's where they pieced it together. At least Malcolm did. Like, that guy that poisoned all those people back in Cuba, that's supposed to be, because they asked the police in Cuba, like, what happened to him, and they're like, oh, he died making an escape. But it's like, no, he's actually alive, and Javier saw him, because, like, if he's trying to make a new escape, like, this was Javier's world, but it was also that dude's world too, so he couldn't take the chance that Javier, like, they ran into each other in that 2-week period, and he couldn't take the chance that Javier might threaten, this new lease on life he has now, this new opportunity he has, so he ended up killing Javier. And luckily, when it was all said and done, like, they're filing people out, but home dude takes a run for it after he tried to bring down the lights on top of Malcolm. Luckily, Gil got him out of the way. But I like that scene of, like, obviously he has Fiona, and it's like, okay, and, like, Malcolm's like, I get it, but it's like, you think you do have to worry about us, but what do you think is going to happen when, like, the Cuban police kind of get, their hands on you? Look outside, you'll see that truck across the way blocking traffic. That's them waiting for the opportunity. And Gil's like, is there really going to be a truck outside? And Malcolm's like, it's New York. There's always going to be a truck. And so, and I love that when the dude was distracted, Malcolm told her something to do ballet-wise, and she spun out the way, and Gil was able to shoot him. And it's like, oh, it kind of all worked out. And it's like, and I love Gil being like, did you just speak ballet? He's like, all right, you want me to fess up? My mom had me go to take ballet for 5 years. Because he talked about the fact that his mom kept, like, taking him to ballets, but now it's like, all right, fine, I admit it. She had me participate. He was like, I was very promising. And Gil's like, bravo. And even Fiona seemed like she was impressed. We're like, oh, okay. I was like, there was also part of me that was thinking the entire episode. Part of me was like, oh, like, she needs a new partner. Like, is Malcolm going to fill that role? I thought something like that was going to happen. Totally didn't happen, but it was kind of an interesting thought in the back of my head. So, that is the case in itself. Now we can get into like all the other aspects that are kind of ended up playing out throughout the episode. Obviously, Malcolm wanted to talk to Martin, and it's like because he needs Eve and Martin to meet, because it's like it's a situation of this is the only way Eve is potentially going to get the answer she needs. So, and obviously Martin being like, oh my God, like, yeah, finally bringing Eve to see me. Oh, so you're the woman that's kind of still in my son's heart. It's just like, don't worry. I know it's got to be a little crazy meeting the parents, but obviously I'm not kind of the wild one. That's his mother. And then Eve, I didn't expect it, walks across the line. It's like, whoa, we just had a whole conversation about not crossing the line, and she slaps him in the face. I was like, ooh, that's not good to do that to a serial killer, especially one who's all about controlling everything. Like, you can tell it kind of pissed him off, but then it's like she revealed who she is, and I love her going in on him, being like, you're not what was it? You're not a surgeon. You're not even a father. You're a void that sucks up everything around you and stuff like that. It's like, ooh, he didn't appreciate that because he doesn't like being challenged when it comes to like his him being a father and everything. He doesn't like that. So I love what ends up happening where it's like, oh, that was in fact a plan. Basically, because even Malcolm was like, oh yeah, you actually got under his cage, because usually like, you know, he likes to be fed, like he wants to be like, even if you're mad or you're happy towards him, he like kind of feeds off all your emotions. And it's like, for Malcolm, it's like, we just cut him off. So eventually he'll kind of maneuver how we want him to. And obviously the entire time, like he's been on edge, he's trying to call Malcolm, because basically he's telling Malcolm to walk away from this thing. I was like, ooh, why are you telling him to walk away from this? What's the deeper secret with this situation? And the entire episode, he's kind of antsy. He even had this Joker moment when he was laying in his bed after the whole conversation with Jessica. He was kind of laughing maniacally. I was like, that sounded like some Joker shit right there. That was kind of interesting. Which I never thought about it, but I guess you can to a certain degree see the parallels between Joker and him. But I love the fact is that he ends up calling Jessica, and Jessica's like, oh, Mr. David, you know, was it quick? Was it a stroke, or was it preferably a heart attack would have been preferable? He's like, well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm still alive. And I just love that she started playing into it, having so much fun. And it's like, you know, our son is in danger. I'm saying this and that. And she's like, oh, it looks so great in this picture on page 6. And he's like, page 6. And then he sees her with Nicholas and he got super pissed. I was like, oh, that's interesting. We'll circle back to that. But later on, he was, you know, cutting back to like his memories with Sophie. And it's like, okay, so what are we going to find out that's so different? And at one point, he's about to take her like gag off, and then it cuts back, and he's like, let me come at this from a different perspective. So he ends up rather than calling Malcolm, he calls Eve, and then later on they come back and they're like, all right, we're kind of ready to go for this. But what was really interesting, though, is his perspective, because he was trying to go at it at a different way. So I guess it included telling a little bit of the truth. So what basically explains is that she was like, I know you were hired to kill me. And then Martin back then was like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, like he hired you to kill me. And he's like, no one hired me to. It's like, then who are you? And he's like, well, you know, I'm the surgeon. She's like, wait, you're the surgeon? He's like, yeah, I know. It's not a name I gave myself, but it's kind of one they gave me. It was like, holy crap, that's so interesting. She thought you were killing her for someone else, when in actuality you're kind of killing her for your own reasons. That's interesting. But then she's like, you don't have to kill me. Like, you know, it's like, actually, this kind of gonna work in my favor. It's like she starts bargaining with a serial killer, being like, no. Like, I can tell you some stuff. And he's like, you do realize I am a serial killer. But she's like, the fact of the matter is, she's like, yeah, but I know a real monster or whatever. So when the time comes, like, she's like, I'll give you an hour. And he's like, oh, she ended up spinning some tale. And so it turns out, like, the way he ends up explaining, because Eve's like, well, what happened to my sister? It's like, I didn't kill her. I actually listened to her story, and it was very compelling, and I let her go. And it's like, wait, but if my sister's around, it can't be true. Then why hasn't she contacted me? Which obviously Martin kind of spins it around. And it's like, oh, like, you know, I'm sorry. That kind of has nothing to do with me. I hope this doesn't affect your relationship with my son, because I mean, once again, I know, you know, it's crazy meeting the parents and stuff like that. But I mean, obviously, like, the wild one is really his mom. I was like, that's so interesting. And that's part of me was like, is he lying? I mean, because it did seem like he wanted to come at it from a different perspective. But even Malcolm's like, if that's really the case, if this was the truth, if you actually let her go, then why all the deceit? Why didn't I knowing her? Why keep up these games and stuff like that? But for him, it's like, because I'm trying to be a good father, I'm trying to keep you away from this. Now you do the same to her. And I was like, huh. So it's like, what the hell is going on here? So obviously Eve wants to leave because she's like, maybe my sister's alive and I need to handle this on my own. It's like, you've studied your father forever. Do you think he was lying? And Malcolm's like, no, I think he was telling the truth. And so for her, it's like, this is no longer your thing. This is my, my search to kind of go on. So she's leaving. And I'm like, okay, so what the hell is all? Because immediately my brain was like, does this have something to do with Nicholas? Because that would explain why he acted as irrationally as he did when he saw them together. It wasn't just out of jealousy. It's because of what he learned from Sophie. And in a moment it started creeping down to like the end of the episode with everything. I'm like, and then it gets revealed. She's like, the real monster is Nicholas. And I'm like, now that's interesting. So that's why you kept her identity hidden this entire time, because it's like, because a part of me was wondering, is like, did he actually switch the narrative? Did he actually not let her go? But it's like, because Malcolm does believe. So I guess he told enough of the truth to make it so that Eve will go off on her own looking for her sister and everything. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Because that means Sophie is in hiding. She's faking her death because whatever it is she knows about him is that he's terrible. Like, she was even willing to, like, for her, Martin is, he might be a thing, but he's not the monster Nicholas is, which that kind of speaks volumes of like, okay, so just when you think you got this whole thing figured out, there's another layer to all of this, that in his own way, Martin has been protecting not only Eve, unbeknownst, or Sophie, he's also been protecting his family too. That's why he's been denying all this stuff, because if a lot of that stuff gets pulled up, it would have come out that, Sophie was alive, and any stuff that any information she had could have put his family in danger. So that means put Malcolm, Ainsley, as well as Jessica in the crosshairs. But now they're already kind of in the crosshairs because Nicholas is spending so much time with Jessica. And this is why I'm kind of like, oh, maybe on some level, Gil kind of had that feeling of like, something's weird about this guy. I don't trust him. And it wasn't just out of jealousy, that there was some legitimacy to it, like some gut feeling to the whole situation. But sets up some very interesting stuff, because if Eve ends up finding her sister, it's probably going to blow up the fact is that she is still alive, that she stayed hid, because that's the only reason why she would stay hidden. It's because she doesn't want this powerful person, like if she ever got in contact with her sister, like that would mean having her sister basically keep the secret, and this guy is so powerful, he probably would have found out. He's probably been looking around the entire time, so he probably is under the impression that she's dead. So Jessica spreading this stuff about the necklace and stuff like that probably helped, by being like, oh yeah, like identify this woman. But now, like, if her identity really did get out there publicly, it would kind of jeopardize everything, whatever it is that Nicholas is up to. I'm curious, in what shape or form is he a monster? Do we have like, is he a serial killer in his own right? Are we talking like mass serial killer putting even Martin to shame? Is he kind of a human trafficker? Like, what is his deal? Consider, it's so interesting how, and especially it makes you even sadder because, Jessica like was so upset by like the whole like not knowing that Martin is who he was, and now it's like you're kind of getting close to someone you think you know who they are, because it also seems like Jessica and him have history, and she's like, oh, let's not kind of count the years and time that's passed between us. So there's definitely history there. Great, that begs the question, was he a monster always the entire time, much like Martin was, or like how that whole situation plays out? We'll ultimately have to wait to see where everything takes us going forward into the next episode. We will be waiting a while. The show is going on a break and won't be coming back until April 20th. So do keep that in mind. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.